Bro, sometimes I forget we're only human. Like, we have our limitations and there's only so much we can do. It doesn't help with all the grindset advice you hear online. Get up early, work, train, no rest. It's not realistic. And trust me, I've tried it. I've tried grinding like 60, 70 hours a week and keeping on top of weight training, getting up early, having a regimented routine. And don't get me wrong, you're productive as fuck, but it can only last so long. You're going to reach burnout, but it doesn't have to be like that. If you understand your limitations, you can work with them. And that is a better alternative. Like the quote goes, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I've thought of 3 limitations that we have, and I'm sure there are many more. The first one is you're limited to your biology. This is more so to those people new to fitness who are just entering the realm of fitness, and they've seen all these people on social media who are 18 with the craziest physiques, and they think they can do the same. In a few months' time, they'll melt all their fat and pack on muscle and have a physique like a competitive bodybuilder. But naturally anyways, that's just not how it works. You can only push your body so far, so hard, for so long, until eventually it'll quit. And trust me, I've tried many times over the years to try and push past my limits. There was this one time, this was only a couple of years ago, I wanted to melt fat a bit faster, and I was already training 6 days a week doing push-pull legs, so it was a high volume split, and I was doing 5 to 6 hours of cardio a week. Then I took on boxing, so I had two 2-hour boxing sessions per week, and I could only keep that up for a month before my body eventually quit. Our second limitation is our brain is powerful, but it's limited. So I heard this in a Modern Wisdom podcast a couple months ago, and they were saying the brain is like a supercomputer with a limited amount of RAM. So what they were saying was your brain can process a large amount of information, but it can only do so on a couple of things at a time. It's bad at multitasking. And to add on top of that, it's like an unplugged laptop. So what I'm saying is you can only focus on 1 or 2 tasks per day before your brain begins to run out of charge. And then it'll eventually hit low power mode where you'll just be running inefficiently for the rest of the day. Like, how many of you are productive late in the day after already working and making decisions throughout the start of the day? Those last few hours, more often than not, is just time wasted. If you try to do that same amount of work in the morning, it might only take a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, in the evening, you're sitting there procrastinating, you're already tired and you're ready for bed. So yeah, your brain is like a super laptop. It's powerful. It can focus on 1 or 2 things per day, but eventually it's going to run out of battery and it'll need recharging. This sounds a bit nerdy, but we are subject to the passage of time. There's a limit to how much we can accomplish in any given moment, in an hour, in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, in your life. Let's use an extreme example. Let's say you want to be an astronaut and you want to be a doctor. To become an astronaut, it takes 10 years. To become a doctor, it takes another 10 years. So you can either become a doctor first and then become an astronaut, totaling 20 years, or you can become an astronaut and then become a doctor, totaling 20 years. Or you can try and do both, but that'll take longer than 20 years. Like, think about all the little handover times you'll have in between. Like, you work 6 hours a day on becoming a doctor and 6 hours a day on becoming an astronaut. It takes time for your brain to transfer from one thing to the next. To bring that back down to earth, let's say you're currently working a 9 to 5 and you want to lose weight as well as start a side hustle. Let's say commute is 1 hour. So you get up at 7, get ready, leave for 8, get to work at 9, 9 till 5 you're at work. Then you set off from work at 5, get to the gym for 6. Then you're there for another 2 hours, now it's 8 o'clock. Then you might want to cook, eat and shower, now it's 9 o'clock. Then you have 2 hours to work in your side hustle before you have to go to bed to get your 8 hours of sleep. Like, people forget things take time. You can try and rush it. Like, say you try and rush losing weight, you're going to end up with more loose skin and you're going to feel like shit. You might even run into other health problems during that process. Or let's say you rush your side hustle. Maybe you'll miss opportunities. Maybe if you weren't rushing, you wouldn't have made those mistakes that set you back even further than if you just took a step back, relaxed, and actually saw things for as they were. There's moving fast and as rushing the process. So yeah, we're limited by time and we have to prioritize. Right, so now that I've refreshed our memories and some of our limitations, you have to remember we're bound by them. Sure, there's a soft limit and a hard limit, and over time we can stretch them. Like, you can increase your stamina when it comes to running over time. But there's a limit to how far you can stretch your limits. And your limits today are your limits today. So, as far as the present moment is concerned, your limits today are final. The solution to that problem is simple. Accept them. Like, if you're listening to this, you're probably the type of person that's pushed your limits before, so you know your upper bound. And as you know your upper bound, quantify it and set that as a target for the day. So for example, maybe you know you can only do an hour of intense weight training per day, or you can only do 4 hours of deep work per day before you burn out. And since you know your upper bounds, set them as targets for the day. An hour of intense weight training, 4 hours of deep work. And if you hit those targets, consider the day a success and accept that you can't do any more without incurring negative future returns in the long run. Trust in the power of compounding and relax. You've done all you can ask of yourself today. Rest and get ready to do the same again tomorrow. But there's an issue with this advice. You must first learn to push your limits. This advice is for people who are pushing themselves past their limits. These are people who are in the gym, training intensely for 3 hours per day, and then they're tempted to run the rest of the 21 hours at zone 3. That's an extreme example, but you get what I mean. They're not giving themselves enough time to recover. And every day that passes is another day closer to burnout. But if you're the type of person that's struggling with procrastination, doing less and finding balance is the last thing you need to hear right now. 'Cause right now, you're not even in the gym. You're on standby. You need to grab that remote, turn the TV off, and beat yourself up. Take that first step, then take another. Then go from walking to running. Beat inconsistency, beat impatience, and then continue to optimize. Just keep upping the levels. You'll know when you need to hear the word relax. But that time isn't right now.